All right, Dustin, we're down to the wire here. Penultimate episode. We always know penultimate episodes of HBO shows are gangbusters. And we have the Succession season 3 penultimate episode. Only 9 episodes this season. So we're on episode 8 entitled Chiantishire. I don't really know what that has to do with anything because that sounds like a vaguely Scottish term and they're in Italy. So I have no fucking clue what that is a reference to. But there was a lot that happened in this episode. A lot of big stuff that we're going to get into. You got anything to say before we get started?
Yeah, Dad, you're evil, and I'm a good person.
That whole discussion when that happened, I'm just like, I feel like this is like a scene that Dustin like had fantasized about in the back of his head, just being like put on the screen right there. All of
Oh
that,
yeah, for this season, yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
All of that and more. Stay tuned. Oh man, is it too much for me to pull the Godfather 3 line? Is that too much here? Because like I feel like I've said this like every single episode since episode 5, where it's like, oh, this is my favorite episode. No, this is my favorite episode. No, last week that was definitely my favorite episode. And then this episode comes out, and I'm like, and just with the ending alone, I'm like, fuck, man. Like, is it possible for this show to like not backtrack, but like backtrack a bit? Just give me some breathing room here. Like, come on. Like,
yeah, I don't think it's the best episode of the season, like a lot of people have been saying, but like we've been saying constantly on this webisode series, weekly series of recaps, they have still not made a bad episode of this show, and this is definitely not a bad episode.
It's kind of amazing when you think about just in general what they've been able to accomplish with this show, how it kind of started off as like this almost faux take on, you know, the rich one percenters, media conglomerates, toxic masculinity, all that usual boring stuff, and how it has evolved into such this quintessential part of the culture now, where it's one of the first shows in a while where it's like everyone is familiar with every character's name and they're not just using the actors to reference them. Every plot line is for the most part really interesting, even though this season I think with like some of its subplots it hasn't necessarily been the strongest, but it still to me is just the absolute demonstration of everything that we love about televised storytelling and like long form storytelling and just like what it can achieve as a medium.
I wasn't really gonna add anything. I was just agreeing with you.
Well, because like the biggest thing that I've been seeing that I've been talking about really a lot so far this year is that television is obviously in this really weird place where it's both trying to like still hold down like the old school like television like rules and formats, for lack of a better word, while at the same time like trying to be as cinematic as possible. And like I've really broken it down to the idea that like television by design is comfort food, right? There's a reason why, again, like kind of those age-old cop shows, those age-old sitcoms, why those things will seemingly still keep running forever no matter what kind of medium, what kind of format they're on, right? And obviously we know that The Sopranos ushered in this whole new era of television that is now so evolved, almost at this point where it's like, yeah, now we can essentially like get movies as these like in these like kind of confined like mini series type formats, right? But the interesting thing to me about Succession has always been the fact that it still kind of adheres to and holds up to some of those rules of old school television, while at the same time still being like the best, most cinematic, most engaging, most entertaining thing that there is to watch right now across both mediums. Like, I don't know. What's really your take on that?
HBO just knows how to make great shows, and Succession is their best show currently. So the fact that it just continues to like keep upping the ante each week and like just gets like everyone enticed and keep watching, I just think they're just doing their job and they know what they're doing.
Yeah, to say the least. It's why I've always loved HBO, as well. I'll still, you know, be a ride or die HBO head until the day that I leave this world ultimately. Let's talk about this episode because there is a lot to talk about. So big, obviously, brass tacks plot points. They're assembling in Tuscany, Italy for their mother, Lady Caroline's wedding. Low-key underrated MVP of this show, just in general. Like, she usually only has like the one-off appearances, but every time she does, she still manages to both baffle you and amuse you in that, okay, how could this person seemingly be more cold and detached than Logan Roy, but she somehow is, while at the same time also still having some of the best and funniest one-liners of all of the characters. They're assembling for her wedding. Kendall is seemingly on the outs and is looking for a buyout. He is officially done. He's ending his conflict with Logan, but Logan is, of course, still an asshole and is still just not willing to budge. Shiv is kind of coming to terms with her position and who she is and what she wants. Roman discovers that his deal of a lifetime that may have landed last week with Mattson may not be going the way that they think it is. And ultimately, at the end of the day, Tom is finding that once again, his position is even more solidified now than it may have been previously, which is Tom's arc this entire season has been really fascinating and really interesting to watch, especially after he scored seemingly such a huge win last episode. But like, I don't know, where do you want to talk first? Because like, I feel like we could go in like 18 different directions, and either way, right? like there's so
just
many
like this
scenes.
episode did.
Yeah.
Which was kind of my problem, which is like there was just like so much going on, and like I still wanted a little bit more out of like Kendall, which Kendall we see coming with his kids. Why is Rava there? I don't know. Oh. She doesn't have any lines really, but like I don't know why. Like, does she have to come with the kids? Rava's just a kid.
After she single-handedly like psychologically broke him in that last episode. I mean, obviously it wasn't just her, but still, like with the fucking gift and everything. But
we still haven't had a conclusion to that.
Nothing. Yeah, and they also, of course, did that thing that television always does, which is like, wow, we haven't seen Kendall's kids in like 3 years at this point, and now they're like all like weird and like grown a lot. And now they all look like weird, gross teenagers when they were like, I don't know, like cute little kids previously. And it's like, oh, every time that happens, it's just always super unsettling. Like they did like all the shit that they did with the Rob and Aaron character in like the last episode where it's like, wow, we haven't seen this guy in like 3 seasons. It's like, oh wow, he's all grown up. It's like, I don't know. It's always jarring.
It's funny to me that they do nothing with like the adopted daughter too.
Right?
Because like she's like a main character. No, she's like a main character on that Mighty Ducks show.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Really? That's what that is?
Yeah, and she sucks on it. So it's like, it's funny how like she's on the best show on television and they don't give her anything to do. It's funny to me. But they give the other, they give Iverson some lines and it's like, oh, okay.
Okay. Well, I mean, if we want to just talk about how they use Iverson and arguably like one of the most fucked up scenes of the entire show, and possibly the entire year, let's just go into Kendall. Like, Kendall is officially at rock bottom after last week. He's got the shaved head. He's cashing in his chips. A little bit unsatisfying, I think, for both of us, because we were both so rooting so hard for Kendall to finally get a win. And the fact that ultimately, because everything just once again rewards Logan through the act of God, Kendall is kind of been forced into this stalemate, both because of just the position that he's in, you know, within the real world, and then just his psychological state. You know, he's kind of been forced into this standstill, right? So he ultimately does take up his dad on his offer. He's like, I want out. I want my $2 billion payout. I want like these people, you know, Jess Vicret, and I'm gone. You don't have to deal with me. You don't have to see me anymore. And it starts off with like this really, really fucking crazy thing where it's like, well, obviously, you know, Kendall tries to confront Logan in front of everyone. That doesn't go well at all. And also it's this crazy thing where apparently now Caroline is also trying to like make sure that him and Logan aren't at the same events, which also like kind of unintentionally results in Kendall like being just thrown out. Like it's bringing it back a little bit to season 1, and not necessarily my favorite things, where like, remember how the first half of season 1 the show just literally seemed to be like, oh, let's just have everyone shit on Kendall just as much as possible. It's getting a little bit of vibes with that this episode, just a little bit
this season too, since he's like on the evil side, so everyone's been against him super hard than they were last season or the first season. So obviously for more obvious reasons, but yeah, it's sad to see him being kind of like sidelined by his mother. And you know, when he does confront his dad at the party, like he really just wants to have a man-to-man, but Brian Cox's character is just such a bastard and like just ruthless. And then when it comes to that scene we were talking about with the kid, that's just like that's just so cold and like
pinnacle.
You really think he's gonna poison you? Like it was funny though when they were picking out the dishes. He's like, no, that's his.
Right.
Like Jeremy Strong did that to fuck with it, but like that got Brian Cox super paranoid. So he's like, bring in the grandson.
Right.
Bring in my boy.
Just why? Well, that just like, again, like comes down to the scene, right? So they have this dinner, they have this confrontation where Kendall kind of lays out his turn, but it's Oh my God. I don't even want to get, again, this is written by Jesse Armstrong, the series creator, directed by Mark Mylod. Again, that pairing has resulted in probably some of the best episodes of this entire show from its inception, where Logan sits down, right? Kendall directs him to this one spot, and Logan like looks at the food, and then he's like, "Oh, how's Iverson?" And he brings him in to say hi, and then he has him like try his food. And Kendall, like the look on Kendall's face, is just like the way that entire sequence is framed. I'm like, oh my fucking God. Like every time I don't think this show can get more tense, it does. And like how they come up with these situations, I'm like, oh man, I want to be in that writer's room so fucking badly, just so I can see like how they come up with this shit. Like what normal mundane thing in whichever of the writers' lives is led to the inception of this incredibly fucked up but such interesting scene. And what follows is essentially kind of like, in a weird way, it's a repeat of a lot of the interactions that we've seen between Kendall and Logan, really since the first episode of the show, which is that, again, it's the ultimate kind of crux of, I think that what separates Kendall from his siblings, which is that Kendall ultimately does want to do good. He wants to do right by the company. He wants to do the best that he possibly can, but he can't do that without needing to like kill his dad. Metaphorically, however, the problem is that he doesn't have the killer instinct, and Logan consistently flaunts that in his face. And what's solidified here in this sequence, after Kendall is like kind of admitting defeat, he's showing it again. He makes the mistake of showing his stomach yet again, once again, and every time it's like Logan is a lion by nature, and he will go for the jugular. It doesn't matter how many, again, if his enemy is down, he will continue to kick them until they're like face first in the dirt. Like that's just how Logan operates. He doesn't know any other thing. And Logan kind of reinforces a lot of the stuff that he told Kendall in the pilot, really, which is, again, it's like, it's all about having the killer instinct. It's all about being the toughest one. It's all about being the meanest one. Those are the people who win ultimately at the end of the day. And Kendall tries to justify it by saying, it's like, you know, you're evil, and I really want no part of that anymore. I thought I could bring some good into this company, right? And I feel like the other thing, too, also here is that it's just ultimately the epitome of Kendall's self-delusion, which is that Kendall, once again, is kind of like in his mind, is like kind of placed himself as this white knight that's going to like save Waystar from all the corruption that's been hounding it this entire season. And the crazy part is that he's still not necessarily willing to accept certain of the terrible things that he's done. And in a very, very strange way, Logan is kind of like, once again, bringing him down to earth, which is like, you think you're so much better than the rest of us, but how many times have I had to clean up your mess? And now that's when you get the full circle moment. And I don't know, like, because as the conclusion of like the dead waiter thing from the first season that they kept throwing in our face throughout as the season went on, like, was this an acceptable conclusion?
And earlier in the episode, when he's talking about wanting to go on a podcast, and then like she starts listing all the podcasts, and it's like, oh, what really happened to the waiter that died that night of the wedding or whatever? And it's like, I don't like that they're bringing it back at all. First of all, I don't like that at all.
Well, that's why I
never
didn't say good. I said acceptable, because there was never going to be let's face it, there was never going to be a resolution of this storyline that was really that well done, because they never should have brought it back up in the first place, because we thought that's not the type of show that this was.
Yeah, it was really just for drugs. Like when he was asking him, like, "Oh, what was this even about? Were you queer?" Like it's just like when he asked him that, I was just like,
Logan's been on like a weird trip with that recently with his kid. Like, and that happens multiple times throughout this episode. But
yeah, and he's just asking him straight up, like, "Oh, were you trying to fuck that kid?" Essentially, and it's like, no, we were trying to get more drugs, but he never answered because he's just in shock whenever that fucking topic is brought up.
Because again, like he can this is ultimately like Kendall's fatal flaw. It's just he can never, and you see this happen with a lot of kids of these types of parents. They can never escape. Their family is ultimately the source of all of the damage that is dealt on them as they grow up. But yet, because it's your family, it's that source of comfort, it makes it very, very difficult to escape from that ultimately. And that's the situation that Kendall is in, where Logan, just for the pure and simple fact that, oh, Kendall still thinks that he's better than us, quote unquote, I'm not going to play ball ultimately. And that leads into, you know what, I'm going to save the ending shot moment for the end, because that's a whole discussion in and of itself. I want to talk about Roman first and foremost. Roman in this episode, like, definitely did not go in the direction that I was thinking after last episode when he kind of like showed his true colors and kind of showed like just, how truly evil he could be, kind of bringing that back also from the first season. And once again, that seems to be like the subject of the episode where it seems that like, oh, Mattson played them. Mattson is kind of pulling a little bit of a Musk. He's tweeting out and it's, raising the stock price of GoJo. And they're like, oh, what's it called? And they're like, oh, what could this be? Is he trying to screw us over? And Roman can't get him on the phone. So Roman goes to visit him. And the term that Mattson brings up is that he is rather than an acquisition, he's interested in a merger of equals, which is basically where, if I'm getting this right, so the ownership is transferred and consolidated with other entities, but the difference being is that it still allows the one entity to grow as a part of it. So rather than say what happened with Volter in season 1, which was a full-on acquisition, this time instead, like Mattson kind of like wants to make sure that he can really not make the mistake that Rob Yang did in the first season and really make sure that he has like a secure position in Waystar going forward. Because as we see in the promo for next week, his whole thing is that I want to make sure that obviously, I stay relevant because I'm only concerned in, self-interest, like every single character on the show. But like, again, it's like Waystar is the old school and I'm kind of the new school. And again, he's making sure that he actually like has a stake going forward. And it's another great interaction between Culkin and Skarsgård, and Skarsgård is still showing off like just how awesome he is and how just so happy to have him back on an HBO show. But also the idea that, again, for the first time ever, it feels like Logan is forced to concede because unlike the shareholder thing where they were able to deal with Stewie and Sandy, this time around, it's like, yeah, we have no choice. We need this in order to strive off big tech and remain relevant. So he kind of has no choice to go along with it. And then Roman, the fucking idiot, has to send a dick pic to Jerry.
That was the worst part of the episode.
It was awful. And the crazy part is, while it was happening, I'm like, he's going to send it to Logan. He's going to send it to Logan. And I was 100% right. And then when it happened, it's like, wow, of course, because this is the type of shit that always throws Logan off of his game. And always, again, like Logan is defined by getting thrown off by the littlest of things. And he's been so preoccupied with the Kendall thing that he totally, and for the most part, like this whole season has been built up to building Roman up to be, it's like, wow, okay, he is the logical successor to Logan. And this just whole thing comes out and screws it. Like, I don't know, man. Like
it didn't even make sense to me how he could have sent it to his dad. I saw it on the screen that he was sending it to his dad.
L and G? They're not even like close unless he had like Jerry
but
he was like a pet name.
The thing that was stupid is that he had Jerry's text up on the screen. All you got to do is go on the fucking bar, press the little camera button, and then if you take a picture, you can send it to that person. You don't have to go on a whole address book, and he's one of the richest people in the world on this show. How stupid is this moment? And then it's just a moment for to show Roman's actual incompetence as a business head, who's a little full of shit, and B, it's just a fucking overtly just comical non sequitur. It's just fucking dumb to me. Like it's just a little too much. It's the one time on Succession where I feel like the comedy felt a little distracting and forced.
And like, what does it lead to ultimately? Like a sit down where Logan just yells at him more, and then like, okay,
it just brings Roman down to where Shiv is again, or you know what I mean? Because Shiv, it's not like Shiv is really above him at the end of this episode. It's that they're just back to equal because he was starting to gain traction because of the Alexander Skarsgård deal. But now since he sent a dick pic, he's not responsible anymore. It's just lazy. It's not up to par to the writing. That's part of the reason why this episode didn't live up to the full standards I have. Usually. Yeah,
just that whole moment for me, I'm just like, why? The show, it was another one, like again, like the Greg thing that we were talking about a couple episodes ago, where I'm like, this show is better than this. The show is smarter than this. Why are they resorting to this? And like, I know they needed a thing in order to bring Roman back down to their level because we know that's how this show is going to continue its momentum forward, is by consistently building these characters up and then bringing them back down. Little Silicon Valley-esque if I'm going to be that guy, but it's very, very, very reminiscent of that. Just saying. And
Very.
I don't know. I don't think any of these writers were involved with that show. Again, I didn't watch any
No.
of the previous properties that these creators were involved with. Obviously, we know Jesse Armstrong, the biggest thing that he was involved in before this was Veep. But that's the type of territory where I'm like, I'm not a huge fan if this is the direction that this show is going. And again, it's a little moment, but I was definitely like, oh man, after arguably Roman's best season, really, let's be honest here. It was so unsatisfying. It was so unsatisfying for so many different things. Obviously, we talk all the time about, characters growing and changing over our movies and TV, when in reality, people really don't actually change that much. And if they do, it happens very sporadically over a long period of time, and usually only happens because of periods of great trauma. And so obviously, more modern day writers trying to capture that. Again, it's the struggle of trying to preserve like how accurate characters are to real life as opposed to like kind of the tried and true traditions of storytelling. And I feel like this show is yet another example of them like constantly kind of like trying to battle that out. And like, we want these characters to grow and change, but they're also supposed to be real people. So JK, they can't change that much, and then it results in like really, really dumb moments like this,
Yes.
and because this is not the first time that I've seen this. And I have a bad feeling this is not going to be the last time we see something like this on the show, which would really suck because, again, this is the best show on TV right now. And I don't know. It's definitely... I don't think Roman's completely out of the running yet, just because of like how Logan seemed like he was going to handle the situation afterwards. We still know that we're still in Tuscany next episode. This is like it looks like we were correct last week when we were talking about how this episode and then next week's finale were seen like a parts 1 and 2. But I do think that there was a chance that Roman could save this, but immediately I love how Shiv just immediately jumps on the bandwagon and just like, it's like, wow, so Roman fucks up, and then Shiv just immediately takes a chance to like be just as shitty as he was last episode, where she goes after Jerry and is like, ooh, I have some leverage that I can hold over Jerry now. And Jerry's
and they
want to
fire Jerry too,
yeah, and
which
I'm
makes
like,
no
really?
sense.
Really? I'm like, Jerry has arguably been like, don't get me wrong, like I definitely don't necessarily know if I buy into like liking Jerry as much as everyone else does, but like if there is one person that has ultimately shown how competent she can be more than any of these other guys, and can really hold her own, again, is arguably really the only one that can hold her own in a room against Logan, it's Jerry. And the fact that they're going to use this as an opportunity to bring her down, the problem there is that it only works as like a show of like, oh, the damage that the Roys can do extends to everyone, and shows that no one is truly safe. I guess that's really the only way that they could justify
and
that.
it shows Shiv's hypocrisy too, where she like sells herself as this women first kind of woman in business or whatever.
Right. And then
then she's fucking over a woman just to get a higher position in the company.
Who arguably has done more to get to that position than Shiv will have done with anything in her entire life, because Jerry is not a Roy. So again, just irony for irony's sake there. And I think that's a good transition into Shiv in this episode where, dude, I don't even know where to begin here, because like Shiv is arguably like, she's at her lowest, but she's also at her most fucked up and her most deranged. Like she gets like some really harsh like words from her mom, who once again, like, I don't know. What are your thoughts on Lady Caroline just as a character?
Because I thought they were justified. I thought she was justified.
Well, just based on like how shitty her kids turned out, obviously.
Yeah,
but like,
and like she's saying, "Oh, I'm such this shitty mother." Well, you're not a good daughter. That's what she was essentially saying. I love that.
Pretty much.
Because like you weren't. Because you're all just trying to like kiss your dad's ass. And it's like, why do you want me to love you? Why do you even need my love? You know? It's like, I mean, because I kind of get where she's coming from. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because the whole thing that's been hinted at in previous seasons with the Lady Caroline character is the fact that like a lot of the damage from the kids, specifically those three, comes from their mother just as much as their father. Obviously Kendall with the whole attachment and abandonment, Roman with the whole mommy complex. And like now we really get into like the whole thing with Shiv in this season, where again, Shiv is like kind of almost trying to project a lot of like kind of like her perceived slights and things onto her mother. And her mother, obviously, again, it shows that like, Lady Caroline, she suffers no fools, and there is never any sort of like backtalk or getting around. She always straight shooter, cuts right to the point, right? You can almost see what it is that Logan saw in her originally, and she fires right back at Shiv, which is like, I never wanted kids. And it's interesting because you almost see like kind of this disparity and this great tragedy from this character, which is where I got the big sense that like Lady Caroline is somebody who has kind of felt like she's been trapped in this cage, you know? Obviously, you know, when we talk about women throughout history of different social classes, right? Specifically of like upper echelon social classes, like throughout like majority of history, they've had to like consistently play to like these male suitors in order to like maintain these positions, you know? But the interesting thing about Lady Caroline is she's not a character who did this for her kids. Really, you could tell that she really did this for herself, and like her kids are kind of like almost like a byproduct of that in a strange way.
Yes.
And how like she is able to kind of really make that perspective really known in a way that you really hadn't previously. You know, you obviously had like the awesome scene with her, Roman, and Shiv last season where they were trying to negotiate for her shares of the company. She was like, yeah, I get you for Christmas. But like, did she really want to see them for Christmas, or was that just something that she could hold over Logan, you know? And it becomes really clear that like that's something that she wanted to hold over Logan. But like, you see how that immediately reflects with Shiv after the fact when Shiv, you know, is told by her mother, yeah, I never essentially wanted you, and like you were kind of a shitty daughter. And what's the first thing that Shiv says? The first thing that she does, she immediately goes to Tom and is like, hey, let's have kids.
Yeah, exactly. Because like she said, no, because importantly, she said to her, you shouldn't be a mother, because some people aren't meant to be a mother, and you're just terrible.
Right. Which is kind of like a persona non grata thing that like a lot of people like, that a lot of people like really like skeptical and like always want to waver at, especially in media and TV. But it's a simple fact. Not all women are cut out to be mothers.
Or not all men are cut out to be fathers.
Exactly. It's like, again, like keeping things equal, you know, keeping everything equal here. Yeah. And of course, that's the first thing that she's going to do. And of course, she's not doing it because she wants a baby or because she actually like has all of a sudden developed this newfound feeling for Tom. No, she's doing it so she can flex over him once again. And because again, like this is just showing that like, yeah, she's, because you know, it goes all the way back to the first episode where Logan consistently made fun of her by saying, yeah, you married a man that's not worthy of you. And obviously we know that that's always been a growing insecure thing in the back of Tom's mind. And the worst part is now it's officially been confirmed where Shiv is basically telling him in that scene, it's like, yeah, I'm only doing this in order to satisfy myself because it makes me feel good knowing that
this is how fucked up she is psychologically.
Right.
The only way she can get into the mood to get pregnant is to
or pretend, really any intimacy of any kind
and pretend. No, but specifically in the mood to get pregnant for a baby, she has to pretend to be a person who's trash talking her husband and saying what she actually feels about him, while pretending that's not how I feel.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's fucking insane.
I mean, look, we all know that human beings are at their most honest when they're at their most intimate and most desperate, and Shiv is both of those in that instance, right? And the worst part is that she tries to play it off once again, like I didn't really mean that. And Tom is wised up to this by this point. He knows this in his heart of hearts, right? And like, I love the discussion that happens after the fact when you have that awesome tracking shot where you're just following them throughout and it kind of keeps going. It reminded me a lot of like the Sarah Goldberg monologue from that one episode of Barry last season where she starts off with this monologue and then she just keeps going and going and going and going until the scene goes on for like 5 minutes. And you're like, when is this going to cut? But it's so enraptured that you're so into it. And I really do once again feel bad for Tom, where it's like, where is his out here? When does he get a break? You know, just in general.
I don't know. I legitimately don't know.
It really kind of sucks because, like, again, like this season with Tom, they have just made him like the push pull. Like they have made him like the punching bag this season more than anything else, where it's like, oh, he's going to jail. Oh, he's volunteering to go to jail. Oh, he's losing his mind. Oh, he's not going to jail. Oh, he wants to fuck Greg. Oh, it's just kidding. He's just, you know, he's just, you know, losing himself. Oh, he's high on drugs. He's not going to jail. Oh, his wife loves him. Oh, his wife doesn't love him.
Oh, he went out for the night. Where did he go?
Who knows?
Fuck guys.
Right? Maybe he went out with the Fly Guys. Who knows? But like, I don't know. It's just, I consistently feel bad for Tom, but at the same time, I don't, because he got himself into this position kind of knowing this. But like, I don't know. It's one thing. I was talking about this, right? It's one thing when you have these feelings in the back of your head, right? That and then everyone will tell you, oh, it's just you, it's just your insecurities. But when you hear them out loud from another person, specifically from somebody who's supposed to be your intimate other, right? And again, like, we know that this is not a marriage out of love. You know, this is a marriage that is done, obviously, so that, you know, for the one person to get ahead. And it makes me constantly question, like, what it is that Shiv ever saw in Tom in the first place. And also, like, kind of
his willingness to go along with anything.
Right. And the fact that she could just, like, walk all over him and just use him as kind of like her punching bag. Yeah. And now it's like I don't know where this goes ultimately. Like, I don't know. Do we finally see like the Tom Greg like love
No,
scene that's been hinted at, or like what is
no.
gonna happen? Like, I fear for Tom's mental state. Honestly, at this point, more than I fear for Kendall's mental state, because Kendall's mental state, you kind of
That's
always
why
know
they
where
need
he's.
to team up. They've
Yeah.
needed to team up the
Yeah,
entire
they do.
season.
They really do. Because, like, Kendall's mental state, we kind of always know that he's going to have some sort of bounce back, right? Because we've just seen it consistently over and over again. Like, we've never really seen Tom at his lowest not like this, because we really only got, like, a brief moment of that in the season 2 finale. But this season has really been, like, a low-key, like,
What about
arguably, like, interesting, like, best season for Tom, really.
what about Connor proposing to Willa?
Yeah. And just more, oh, Connor's still here. We got to give him something to do.
Yeah,
And it sucks because I really thought of that they were finally going to bring Alan Ruck into the main fray. And it seemed like that's what they were doing for those middle couple of episodes, for those 4 through 6. And now it's like, nope, Connor's back to being the joke character. He's just a character that we kind of like have to give him stuff to do. And the fact that it's like, oh, he's going to propose to Willa, and Willa, obviously, like, she doesn't want to hurt him because she does. I don't know. I feel like it said more about Willa than Connor in that sequence, where it's like,
yeah,
where it's so funny to me how Willa and Connor are so completely the opposite of Tom and Shiv, where Tom and Shiv, again, they did everything right. They got married. They had this big, glorious, beautiful wedding. And then Shiv literally only is married to him so that she can make herself feel better. And Connor and Willa got together. It kind of on the surface seems like nothing but a relationship of what's it called of gain, right, for both of them, right? Connor like kind of gets like the source of intimacy, and Willa obviously gets all the money in the world. But
it's really it's starting to hit me though how dumb Connor's plan is to be president,
right,
especially with her being his significant other or whatever, because he would like, even if he was president, like, or became president, or like was running for president and like was actually like a candidate who could be president, like he would be off the race just because his wife is like a hooker, you know what I mean, or an escort or whatever she is. But like, if she breaks up with him and he still runs and then he gets married, then what are they gonna have, a subplot with her like going like fucking leaking all of his fucking information out there? Like, what is this, like, what was his plan? This is just becoming ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't ultimately. And again, it's another one of those things where I don't even think the show really knows or cares about where it's gonna go. Which is kind of unsatisfying, because it's like, Alan Ruck is so good on the show that it's almost like unfair what they're doing to him consistently, where it's like season 1, and it really sucked, because the thing about last episode that I really enjoyed is the fact that we were seemingly getting a little bit more of a glimpse into his personal life and like kind of into his previously relationship with the siblings, because like I've talked about previously, the interesting thing about Connor is the fact that he has constantly been like this guy almost on the outside looking in, even though he is a Roy, because he's only their half sibling, right? But the fact that he is significantly older than them, and the fact that he kind of like did like fulfill like, some semblance of like creating some form of like happy, like familial bonds with the kids that their father was just never interested in because he's Logan. And that stuff was really interesting. And I thought they were going to dive more into that, right? And like that to me is what made Connor so appealing as a character in the first season, is the fact that every time he was on screen, like they would bring up these little moments from their childhood history where it's like, what is their deal growing up? Like what was their relationship like? And we got a little bit more of an insight into that this season. And it was really sweet. And they finally brought back Willa, even though she's arguably had the least to do of her entire run in this show, even though she's promoted to the main cast. Like that will forever baffle me with this show specifically. Like HBO's like had a little bit of a history of doing this, but like with this show specifically, where they promote a main character to main cast status that's been recurring, but then they have less screen time. Like it happened with Stewie last season, and now it's happened with Willa this season. And I'm like, what is happening? Like, what is the thought process here? Where Willa was main cast for the entire first half of the season, and then she's like non-existent for like the first 5 episodes.
Isn't Carolina
too? Carolina was promoted to main cast last season and is still in this season. Carl and Hugo were promoted this season. Were promoted this season, but like they at least had something to do. Like Hugo had a pretty big part the first half, and Carl, same with Carl. But also just the fact that the actor who plays Carl is like 75 or something like that, and he looks like 50 is insane. But yeah, I'm forever confused by how this show handles its ancillary characters that aren't in the main cast. And the fact, and like the whole thing with Willa there is, I don't really know what they're trying to do. I really, really don't. Where it's like, again, it's another joke. It's another one-off. Willa, she cares about Connor, but she also doesn't necessarily want to tie the knot with him. She's
Willa or won't they?
Hey-oh. But I don't know. Like, it really sucks because I felt like Willa was a character that had the potential to, like, really actually go for it because she has consistently shown time and time again that she is a lot smarter than she lets on. But also, like, does genuinely, like, seemingly, like, have, like, a lot of good bones. Like, she doesn't seem interested in Connor for his money. He consistently offers that up, but she never seemed like she was interested in him because of his money, despite the fact that they got together because she was a call girl. So that whole relationship, just in general, like, I don't know, like, I feel like it's consistently hinting at something, but it never actually goes there, which is beyond frustrating because it could be so awesome, you know?
They are and they aren't, like, still, like, having that dynamic of like that call girl and like customer thing, because she's not really his girlfriend still.
Right.
She's not, because if she was really his girlfriend, she wouldn't pretend to say yes at that moment. You know what I mean? Like, she's still, like, just wanting more out of him. She got the play out of him. That cost fucking money.
That did.
You know
He
what
was
I
even
mean?
complaining about how much it was costing in the last season finale, where he was like, "Oh man, just give like one good review, just one, because it is getting torn apart." But yeah, obviously, so one more iconic scene that we talk about before, and I want to get into some predictions as to what's going to happen on the finale next week. But yeah, so that ending shot, man, like, it's interesting because there was a lot of behind the scenes stuff where Jeremy Strong and a lot of people were hinting, it's like, oh shit, are they going to kill off Jeremy Strong? Is he gonna continue to be a main character?
That would be stupid.
Which would fucking suck because, like, Kendall's the reason to watch this show. He's the main character, and like, they were making comparisons like, oh, they can do what they did with Ned Stark. It's like, first of all,
no, fuck off.
Ned Stark's death was engineered from the beginning as an intentional choice. Ned Stark was a main character by default, but he was never really meant to be like a mainstay of the show going forward, right? And Succession has become more ensemble based as time has gone on, but like, Kendall very much is the epicenter of that show, and I feel like to wipe him out like that,
it'd be very unsatisfying.
It would feel very unsatisfying and very short-sighted, really, especially because, like,
yeah, unless the whole point of it was to be cynical, but like, whatever, you could still have that point of view while having him still have a good chance of like taking over his dad, but like, you just wrote him into a corner and now he's like seemingly suffocating in a pool while Rava is right outside and standing outside of the pool. Like,
craziness.
What the fuck are you doing,
and like,
Rava?
I knew, and it was another scene just like the Roman thing where it's like, I know exactly what's going to happen here. His kids are going to walk away. He's just lying there on the thing defeated. He drops the beer bottle. He's just going to let his head float. And it's like, again, like, because this was hinted at all last season, but in my opinion, much, much more well done. And I don't know, what are they doing with this? Because obviously they very clearly show that, like, there's no shots of Kendall in the promo for next week. And it's like, what? Are they just gonna
fool? That's fooling us.
It doesn't make any sense at all, because it's like, what? They're just gonna leave him floating in that pool and not make a big deal about it at all. That was thing number one, where it's like, okay, this is shocking in the moment, but in hindsight, you pull back, you're like, there's no way they would do this here. You know, there's just no way. And
they
also
show somebody in the corner that looks like Rava standing at the pool.
Right.
Someone sees him. If they don't, that's like murder if they don't get him.
Right.
So, like, whatever.
What I could see them doing, and this would be a really ballsy decision, even ballsier, I think, than killing him off. What I could see them doing is if they do the 5-season run and not end it with next season, which I still think would be stupid. I think there's at least 2 more seasons to get out. I don't want it to end with next season. But what I could see happening is what they did with McNulty in season 4 of The Wire, where McNulty, Dominic West, you know, again, there were a lot of weird things, a lot of contractual obligations, a lot of renewals that were going into season 3. David Simon originally wanted to end the show with season 3. Then they got the renewal for another season. Dominic West went off because he wanted to audition for Casino Royale for James Bond. So they placed the character of Jimmy McNulty in that 4th season very much on the back burner. McNulty is barely in the 4th season at all, despite the fact that he's the main character that we're introduced to that really carries us through those first 3 seasons. He's pretty much on the back burner, is essentially like not at all a factor in season 4 at all. And then he comes back in a big way in the last season. I could almost see them do something like that, where Kendall goes away, whatever, it stays on the back burner for pretty much all of season 4. The rest of the cast does what they do in season 4, and then it kind of leaves the door open for him to like come back in a big way and really take charge in that last season. That to me would make way more sense than killing him off. I think killing him off would just be short-sighted.
Yeah, but like also making him like just return to like being like a drunk or like is he or
Yeah.
is he not doing
I don't
drugs?
want them to do that.
Like what are they gonna do for that fourth season like break that you're like proposing? Like what is he supposed
Right.
to be in rehab again?
I don't
Like
know,
that's
rehab
so
again.
fucking annoying. Stop
Rehab,
repeating yourself.
mental
Yeah,
hospital, like
yeah.
because of the suicide thing. Have him under suicide watch. Maybe he wants to really spend more time with his family and
Everyone's
his
gonna still think
kids.
he's crazy. No, something needs to happen in this next episode big. Either Brian Cox needs to die or Jeremy Strong needs to expose both of them. Because he might expose himself for the guilt he feels for the
Right.
kid dying. So he might, put himself in jail for that to like overthrow his dad. I hope it's another conclusion. I hope he gets him in like a business way, not a exposing himself way. But that's just me. I don't know.
Yeah. So a couple quick rapid fire questions, just immediate, like quick yes or no questions going into the finale next week.
Mhm.
Do they officially land GoJo, or does Mattson just fuck them over?
No, yeah, no. I don't think
Matt,
they're getting it.
they don't think they're getting it. Okay.
No.
Is Shiv pregnant either by the end of next episode or going into next season?
Yes.
Okay. Will Greg and Comfrey last?
Hmm. I mean, they barely had anything in this episode too, which
True.
was also stupid to me.
Yeah, true.
And it didn't make sense because, like, what was Jeremy Strong doing that was making her busy? It
Right.
didn't make sense.
Exactly.
I
Like,
don't know.
why is she even still employed by him if he's pulling out? Too.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
other thing.
And they don't even like him. Like, remember in the last episode when like the Asian lady that works for him for the
Yeah.
PR, like he walks away as he decides not to go on stage. She's like, oh, thank God. It's like, all right, so you were just going to do this blindly,
Right.
even if he humiliated himself. It's like, no
Right.
one cares about Kendall.
Yeah, no one. Like, that's the thing that
Yeah.
this season is established, is that no
Mm.
one cares about Kendall and everyone is just cynical and out for themselves,
Yeah.
which again, like, not that the show was really that ambiguous about it the first two seasons, but this season really hammered it home.
Yeah.
Oh, well, what else was I going to say?
What was the other yes or no? I'm sorry.
Oh man, there was one other thing and it's right on the tip of my tongue. Does the Greg suing Greenpeace arc go anywhere? Or is that just another one-off joke for this season?
Yeah, no, I don't believe so.
Man, that would suck because what's it called? Is this season gonna be the last time that we see Grandpa Ewan, or you think they're gonna keep bringing him back?
They'll bring him back until
Right.
James Cromwell dies.
Maybe they kill him off before they kill off Brian Cox. Who knows?
Maybe no, I mean like James Cromwell will
Like
die.
James Cromwell actually dying?
Yeah.
Yeah, true. But okay. Do we ever see Eric Bogosian again? Because we didn't see him at all this
I
season.
fucking
That was
hope
super
so.
sad.
I don't know why.
I wanted him
Yeah.
back.
Especially we got that Nate guy back.
Yeah, we got
So
him
why
back.
the
We couldn't
fuck
get Eric
can't we get
Bogosian back?
Erica
What the fuck?
Bogosian?
What the fuck? Come on. What's it called? Will Iverson ever actually matter in the show aside from just being a random plot device that they occasionally bring in?
Well, either of the kids? No. Well,
Well, they kept referencing.
that kid can't act either, so that's probably why.
No, at all.
Like,
Let's see. Oh, will we see Stewie actually play any meaningful role going forward now that the fucking merger is done? Great.
no, dude, he's gonna be in Marvel from now on. Yeah, go to
That'd
Marvel.
be crazy.
you big shot
The
asshole.
one random guy with like,
I don't like that actor.
We have all these other guys.
Yeah.
We have all these other guys from all these other Sony movies in here. And oh yeah, there's Ariane Moayed in there promoting Succession.
I don't like that Ariane Moayed guy because to me, out of everyone in the cast, he seems the most like his own character, and I don't like him. And he just seems like a big shot. And it's like every scene with him feels the same. And I'm glad the less we see of this character, the more I like this show. So it's fine.
Okay. Now, will Hope Davis and Alexander Skarsgård have bigger roles in the show going forward? Like, do they get promoted to main cast next season or no? You think they continue to be like recurring background players?
I think it's a possibility. I don't know if Alexander Skarsgård's going to continue on this show, but I think Hope Davis will.
Got it. And then really the last thing, let's see. All right, really the last thing. Are any of the characters really in a better spot at the end of this season than they were at the end of the last season? Because it certainly doesn't seem like it.
I guess Greg.
Baby. But once again, just by the grace of God in general. Because it's like, again, there's a reason why I think that Greg is ultimately going to come out on top of this thing. Because again, whatever act of God that consistently saves Logan from literally every single scenario that he's in seems to be hovering around Greg too. And so that's why I'm consistently confident. Let's see. Will any of these main cast members aside from Logan, who we've been talking about, will any of these main characters die before the end of the show? Any one of them?
Like before the end of this season?
No,
or the
like
whole
before
show?
the end of the whole show.
Maybe Tom.
That
Maybe
would be
Roman.
wild.
Maybe Roman in like a sex thing.
Right. Because this is not a show that really kills off characters. That's the thing, you know? Like, HBO shows that, like, have a high body count, they usually establish that pretty quick. And this is not the type of show that I feel like does something like that.
Oh, it doesn't have a body count right now. If you don't,
aside from the waiter.
No, that guy and the guy that like shot himself like in like that fucking
in the safe room episode that we didn't even see. Yeah, true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the body count.
Yeah. Do we ever see Adrian Brody again too? Because the show was just seemingly forgotten about him. Like he was, or do you think he was just a one-off for this season?
I'm so sad about that. I don't like that they did that. Yeah. I wanted more Adrian Brody.
Yeah. Because he was being so hyped up too for that episode also. And then just did nothing with him ultimately.
But he was great in that episode.
He was awesome. He's great. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's it called? So now, who do you think is taking home the Emmy for guest actor? Skarsgård, Brody, or Justin Kirk? Because it's got to be one of those three. It's got to be.
Probably Brody.
Yeah, makes sense. He's the biggest movie star.
I wouldn't mind seeing Justin Kirk in the next episode too. Maybe they hint at like that, like you know, like the presidency. Like maybe he could be president for the next season. That would be wild.
Right. I definitely see that as being like more of like a subplot that they save for like next season potentially, rather than having that be like a focus of this.
Yeah.
Let's see. What else was I gonna say? Strong wins the Emmy, right? Like who else is there to compete with him? Like still like last season, Brian Cox at least had the boar on the floor hunting episode. This season, like,
there's plenty of great scenes.
Oh, sure, but like
the piss mad, but like the scene at the table that we were talking about, like that whole scene, like he was insanely good in that whole scene.
I don't know. I feel like this season, more than any of the, like, Cox and Strong were on such, I thought, like, great equal footing for like the first two seasons so well, and this season, I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I'm like used to Logan as a character versus Kendall continues to surprise me. I just feel like Strong has just been acting circles around him this entire season.
I think Jeremy Strong's the strongest performance on the show. I just think, Brian Cox is definitely fantastic in it. Like, he's close.
Yeah. And then what's it called? What I'll just throw this. We'll do this episode, and we'll do this next episode too. What are some other like big key actors that you would want to see join this show?
Ooh.
There's a lot you could choose from. It's a big wide open
pool. So many.
Because this season really blew open the doors. Like I said, we got Hope Davis, we got Justin Kirk, we got Adrian Brody, we got Skarsgård, we got Stephen Root, we got Reed Birney, we got Yoel Vasquez out of nowhere. We got all these people,
they should get like Bryce Dallas Howard. They should get Octavia Spencer.
Whoa, go back to Bryce Dallas Howard. What part would Bryce Dallas Howard even have in this show?
She could be like another redheaded bitch that like rivals Shiv. I don't know.
Another daughter of an aging CEO? I feel like that point. It would
I don't
just
know.
Be like
I'm fucking joking.
Thing.
I am joking the whole thing. I was just listing people from The Help.
Thought you were going there.
Maybe they'll need their help.
In a weird twist of events, though, I could actually see Jessica Chastain like joining this and having like a really like meaty, interesting part of this show. That would be cool. Her, I feel like I would really want to see. I don't know. I feel like we need some new, like, young blood in there.
Johnny Simmons. What happened to Johnny Simmons?
Yeah, right? Johnny Simmons, like, having him come in. No, but, like, because Skarsgård is, like, I don't know. I feel like we consistently have this idea in our head that Skarsgård is, like, younger, but Skarsgård is, like, 45, which makes it, like, Skarsgård is, like, a couple years older than Kieran Culkin. So, like, I feel like we just need, like a really rich, like, young tech CEO to come in next. Not
Jim
like a dude that's in his 40s. Jim Cummings, that could be interesting.
Perfect.
That would be really interesting.
Jim Cummings is an independent filmmaker who's been in movies like The Wolf of Snow Hollow, Thunder Road, and The Beta Test, because your audience definitely doesn't know who he is. So I'm telling him, he's a great actor, and he's fucking fantastic, and he would totally be perfect for this show.
What's interesting is I'm pretty sure that Chris actually watched The Wolf of Snow Hollow last year, so that's really interesting that you bring that up. But oh man, I'm trying to think of just like one guy who I would want to see in there potentially. Oh man, this is going to annoy me because I'm never good at this. I always have to like think really hard and long on this. What about Bruce Dern? You think Bruce Dern would work in this show?
As what?
I don't know. Like, it just randomly like came to my mind. I was just like
thinking of people who are like on their deathbeds. Okay.
Well, like just as like another like potential enemy that they can bring out of nowhere. You know,
who's the next person you're gonna say? Jeff Bridges?
Well, like, because they see the squad. Jeff Bridges, I wouldn't mind seeing in the show, but Jeff Bridges
he's also dying. Like. He is.
I don't know, just as like another guy that could like, be this other old school, like aging CEO or old person that could like fight with Logan. I don't know, man.
Oh, I know. I definitely know. Bob Hope. He'd be perfect.
What?
Yeah. You're just naming dead people. I don't know.
Dead. I haven't named a single dead person.
What about Chris Rock? That would be funny if Chris Rock just shows on.
That would be just weird. That would be just like celebrity stunt casting, and they would only just have him in there. I feel like just like as playing like a weird version of himself. That's what I could not see working.
Gina Rodriguez. Get Gina Rodriguez. Get Emma Roberts.
Emma Roberts, I can see working. Emma Roberts, I can
Roberts.
see. Yo, okay, imagine this. Imagine like a flash forward, like they do just like one of those random crappy flash forwards, like 20 years from now, or like 10. Yeah, and like Emma Roberts is like Tom and Shiv's daughter, and you just see like her dealing with them as like the new like form of like the Succession, the next generation. They can do a spinoff show about it. That sounds absolutely fucking awful. And I
know he's not in the conversation, but like Kevin Spacey would have been great for this.
Yeah. Oh, come on. Like you want to talk about a show that was like literally like made in a laboratory for one actor? It would be this show for Kevin Spacey.
For sure.
It kind of sucks that we're never gonna get to see him.
It would have been funny if he was the president, but it was his character from House of Cards.
Plot twist, and he's just his character from House of Cards.
And it's like set in the same universe.
The merging of the networks, the intellectual property like dispute would be insane. Oh man, that would be hilarious. Because I'm pretty sure because Reed Birney was his VP on House of Cards.
Oh, that's hilarious. Oh my God, that's funny.
Who replaced him
funny.
when he got shot in season 4, that's amazing.
That's
if we're just going with more of the House of Cards comparison, bring on Lars Mikkelsen. Have him play like the president of Russia.
Like Reed Birney he was also the vice president on House of Cards.
Yes.
That's hilarious.
Yes.
That just makes my joke funnier.
That's what made it even more baffling when he showed up in that episode. I'm like, wait, what? He's the VP here? I'm like, what is going on here? This is weird, but
that's funny, dude.
Yeah, but with that little humorous innuendo,
Cedric the Entertainer.
Hey man, he was great in First Reformed and Master of None season 2. But with that being said, that was our recap review of Succession season 3, episode 8. Only one more episode to go with this latest of these TV recap series. It was kind of a little bit last minute spur of the moment, but we're so happy that you guys have been still tuning in and enjoying, everything that we've been doing throughout up until this point. Make sure you guys continue to follow us on all the social media platforms. Unfortunately, please do not follow us on our current Instagram account because it has been hacked. And so unfortunately, we do have to start a new Instagram account, but follow us on Facebook, Talkin TV. You know the drill. Be sure to click the subscribe button, click the like button, click the bell next to it. That way you guys get notified every time we put up new content. Dustin, where can the good people find you?
They can find me on YouTube, Mr. G Movie Reviews. They can find me on Letterboxd, Dustin Mason. You can find me on Twitter, Duster.
All right. And of course, you can follow me at Movie Nerd Reviews, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the above. Letterboxd, all the above. I am the Movie Nerd, and this has been the Succession Recap Show. We'll see you guys next week for the finale. 12 seasons.